COVID-19 has gotten everybody kind of mulling over if GNC is going to go bankrupt. But then you have the Vitamin Shoppe, which has stayed relatively silent under the umbrella of its new owner. What gives? The last Vitamin Shoppe update that I gave you guys was uploaded on November 24th, 2019. So things have obviously progressed since that point. So I thought it was time for me to give you guys an update. And for this first part of the video, I do want to run through a little bit of a timeline for you guys to give you some key dates. Then I'm going to be covering a small amount of financial data, and then we're going to transition to the back part of the video, which is going to be around COVID-19 and just some insights that I have around that for Vitamin Shoppe. So some of those key timeline activities: on December 16th, 2019, the SEC approved the transaction for Vitamin Shoppe to be sold to Liberty Tax, which is now known as the franchise group. So that did have an effect on this Q4 earnings and why it's a little bit late. The franchise group has done a ton of different transactions within a short period of time. So they had some delays, and then COVID-19 has caused some more delays from some of their administrative staff, accounting people trying to get those documents ready for the SEC because they are looking to get uplisted into the NASDAQ. And then another announcement was in late January, the Vitamin Shoppe had announced that they had a strategic retail partnership with LA Fitness, about 10 or so locations I think they're going to start with from a test perspective on a new kind of store within a store concept. Obviously, with COVID-19 shutting down the gyms, that has totally kind of washed out how those are doing, and I don't really have much update on that other than gyms are closed and obviously they're not doing well. But the strategy as a whole does follow what Vitamin Shoppe is looking to do in 2020 and beyond, is to extend their brand concept outside of the four walls of just Vitamin Shoppe stores. They are following a similar strategy to GNC. GNC's been doing this for a while, but has accelerated that in 2019 as well. So after it's kind of this COVID-19, the great lockdown kind of stops, we'll kind of see how that progresses and if there are more retail strategic partnerships that will be announced by the Vitamin Shoppe. Now, if we fast forward 4 to 6 weeks, that puts us right at the start of COVID-19 and the retailing kind of landscape effects that have happened in the United States. I won't go into that right now. We'll kind of save that to the end, but I do want to move into the Q4 financial data just so give you guys a base understanding of what's happening at the Vitamin Shoppe if you guys are not following along or have not followed along with some of my videos before. The last video that I did put out, that update was around or surrounded the Q3 2019 Vitamin Shoppe earnings. I'll pop up that video here if you guys are interested in watching it. And that was on a self-reporting standpoint. Vitamin Shoppe was still its own company, even though it did have a pending transaction to be acquired. Now, this Q4 earnings, this is a part of the franchise group's consolidated financial statements. And because I told you the transaction did not get approved until December 16th, it actually only has 13 days of activity in there. So we have to kind of take some liberties to move the 13 days and kind of extrapolate those out to a 92 calendar day Q4 for comparative reasons. I'm not going to do much else on the numbers because quite honestly, the report was very soft on numbers right now. So I'm not exactly sure how that will play out in the future based around when they actually are able to kind of get in there and put together some stronger consolidated financial reports. But the Vitamin Shoppe did report for those 13 days from the December 16th to December 28th, which was the closing date for Q4 for the franchise group. They showed revenue of $30,574,000, and that would give you a estimated Q4 revenue of $216,370,000. And it's obviously not right for a few different reasons, because that's just a very rudimentary way to get that number. So odds are very small that that would be right. Secondary, It is down 12.9% year over year, which is much higher than where Vitamin Shoppe has been from a trend basis in the last few years. So I'm going to assume that that number was front loaded from the revenue number. There might have been some things that franchise group did from an accounting standpoint to pull that revenue down and boost expenses up, because they did also have a pretty strong operating loss that they reported for Vitamin Shoppe. So not able to really give you guys much sense of like what is the inner workings of what's happening at Vitamin Shoppe, but I did want to just give you that as a base so you guys knew kind of what was happening just from an estimated standpoint. Vitamin Shoppe did announce they were doing a store optimization plan similar to GNC. Obviously, they have a much smaller store base numbers of store locations, so they are not going to be dropping hundreds upon hundreds like GNC. They did have 30 less locations at the end of 2019 than they did at the end of 2018. So now they have 744 locations. And at the reporting time of this quarter four earnings, they did have all of those Vitamin Shoppe locations still corporate owned. And that's important to note because, one, the name of the holding company that owns Vitamin Shoppe now is called the Franchise Group. So that should tell you a little bit about what they like to do. So I'm going to think that within the next probably 12 or 18 months, barring the COVID-19 long-term effects and how attractive that makes these businesses from a franchise perspective, you're going to start to see that transition over. And you can actually see this from the Franchise Group's investor presentation that they put out in March 2020. They believe there's a significant potential refranchising opportunity. The owners, leaders of Franchise Group are not in the business of selling vitamins, and they don't want to be in that business, quite honestly. They want to create a system of retailing that can be applied to different business verticals that are asset light, high margin, and provide strong cash inflows for investors. They are bundling many franchise businesses together to create synergies at the administrative and supply chain operational side. They will use those owned logistics and other internal businesses to essentially provide an environment for owner operators to benefit, but it will also benefit the larger consolidated company as a connected revenue creating business function. This is also why Vitamin Shoppe is extremely focused on private label creation and shifting the product mix over to a more beneficial model for the franchise group. Similar to GNC, that would then put them in a position to resell those private labels to franchises at a profit and also to other wholesale customers outside the walls of Vitamin Shoppe as the brand equity grows globally. So for the final part of this video, I do want to transition into some COVID-19 effect talk with Vitamin Shoppe, give you guys a little bit of sense of both Vitamin Shoppe, what they've been doing, how they're evolving, adapting to this new environment, but also give you a little bit of an understanding of the franchise group, where they're at from a financial perspective, so you guys know how strong the balance sheet essentially is also for the Vitamin Shoppe business continuity purposes. So Vitamin Shoppe has not announced any significant furloughing or laying off of any staff. This is very different than what GNC has done. If you guys want to watch that video, I will pop that one up here for you guys. It's definitely a different vibe of a video than this one. The financials of the franchise group, at least for some of the footnotes and things they put in for this final quarter of 2019, they said that furloughing or laying off of employees as a whole, like all of their retail, franchise, or owned concepts, if the stores were closed and it was not an essential business, then essentially they would furlough those employees. But if the business was running and the employees were needed, they were not going to be furloughed. Now, the question of like essential, non-essential in the Vitamin Shoppe's perspective here is a little bit of a fuzzy statement. And you guys have heard me probably talk about this before. The federal government, at least the interpretation of the federal government's stance, is that vitamin stores, health food stores are essential businesses. Now, states do have the right to supersede some of those things. So you are seeing certain states say, hey, these are not essential businesses. So there are some closing of stores, which then would then reduce the need for staff and then put people on furlough, but not a massive furloughing like you saw in the GNC announcement. And according to the Vitamin Shoppe's CEO, Sharon has mentioned that the headquarters staff is working from home, but The stores and the warehouses are fully functional. They are working to meet the demands. She also mentioned some of the store hours were closed based around just the need or some of the state and local kind of laws around retailing locations. But she was very bullish around online sales and how that's picked up since the start of COVID-19 as people shift their behavioral patterns away from shopping in store and to online. They did note that there were some possible delays in some of their digital sales fulfillment and getting that to the customer. They mentioned that about a month ago. They've not really updated that at all or mentioned anything else. Another interesting point is that they're not offering returns, which they are kind of explaining that in a health justification perspective, but it also helps the Vitamin Shoppe manage cash flows in a time when liquidity is extremely important. It does not do much for customer experience piece of it, because if you did buy something that maybe you don't like or for whatever reason that's within the return policy, you're no longer allowed to return that for purchases made after March 25th of 2020. Vitamin Shoppe is trying its hardest to offer as many shopping options as possible. They're also leaning in hard on offering support and content for consumers already going online with questions about wellness and immunity during the pandemic. And as noted earlier around just general traffic and people being more interested in the vitaminshoppe.com, the digital side of Vitamin Shoppe, the CEO mentioned that they are getting a lot of traffic for Google search terms like aloe vera gel, black seed oil, silver, oregano oil, and protein powder. Additionally, compared to GNC, they don't have as much exposure to the sports nutrition side of the business. That's actually their second biggest kind of category, sports nutrition is. So that has been hit with gym closures overall. So Vitamin Shoppe has less exposure compared to GNC in that and should benefit from that different merchandising mix. Now, I've not seen an abundance of like statements from Vitamin Shoppe, the leadership of Vitamin Shoppe, like any content, things that are coming out that are talking much around the positivity of their business. You'll see with some of the retail businesses in some other categories that if they are doing extremely well, they're out there just screaming from the rooftops. They're extremely excited to tell people that they're doing well. On the flip side, if they're not doing well and they're not doing well to the extent of like potentially going out of business, you're seeing that come from like a more from like a SEC press release, current report updates that need to be put out for investors. But somewhere in between, that's kind of where Vitamin Shoppe is you're not really seeing too much on either side of that communication. So I'm assuming that business is just kind of flat and it's not doing all that well, but it's not doing bad to the point where they need to kind of put out information from a franchise group perspective. But franchise group did put out just a group-wide current report update on COVID-19, mostly around just their cash position. They were discussing some of the things that they were doing to mitigate some liquidity and kind of cash flow issues that were happening with the business. Most of their businesses are essential businesses, so they didn't think that they were getting affected to the point where there's going to be any drastic measures needed. That April 3rd update did mention that they had about I think 120 or so-ish $1 million on the books. They didn't, from what I could see from the financial reports, they didn't have much for a debt due within the next 2 years or around 2 years. They did have much more debt than they had cash or cash equivalents on their books currently. So it's important to note that, but just right now and in kind of the immediate term, no big risks that I could see, quite honestly, from the franchise group. But they did have all of their retail businesses kind of go through a process, both from like a corporate perspective and from a store-to-store perspective, to make sure they're mitigating any usages of cash or trying to stretch out some of their payment terms. That's from them approaching landlords, looking to get rent deferrals or abatements, working with vendors and suppliers to extend terms out, suspending all non-essential capital expenditures, dramatically reducing all non-committed or contractual marketing activities, delaying non-essential projects and programs. And that commentary is not specifically for Vitamin Shoppe. It is for all the businesses that the franchise group owns. So I don't want you to think that the Vitamin Shoppe is struggling to pay all their rents and all kinds of different things. They might be struggling in certain store locations, certain regions, but that's not a commentary specifically pointed at the Vitamin Shoppe. I'll leave you with this off-the-cuff comment from my friend and Bang Energy CEO Jack Gowak. if Vitamin Shoppe struggles throughout 2020, he is ready and willing to purchase them. I mentioned that I would love a board seat and a potential C-suite appointment. Still waiting for Jack to confirm he's going to give me those. But if you have any questions or comments about the Vitamin Shoppe, feel free to drop a line in this content or reach out to me on any of my social media platforms. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to help support me, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button on this video. If this is the first time you've been introduced to my videos, would love for you guys to be a part of my community by subscribing to my channel. I upload several videos just like this weekly. And if you guys want to connect further outside of this platform, I do include all of my social media links down below. I just want to thank you guys again for your time. Hopefully I gave you some value in return, and we'll see you guys on the next video.